Chairman, and thank you all for being here. Thank you for your work in science and for yielding your wisdom in this effort to us today. Dr. Metzel, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that there were scientists who refused to be silenced, insinuating that there were efforts to silence, and I was just wondering if you could kind of brief what some of those efforts were that you saw.
Sure. So when a small handful of us in the earliest days of the pandemic began raising the possibility of a possible lab origin, there was just, as I said, ferociously strong headwinds. There was this manufactured consensus, and I kept digging. And like I said before, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I consider myself a progressive person, but I kept digging. I couldn't find the justification for these strong arguments, calling people like me investigating, looking into pandemic origins in good faith conspiracy theorists. And it was very difficult. So we had a small group that formed later in 2020 that others have called the Paris Group. All of the members of that community were aggressively trying to place scientific papers with journals and had zero success. So there was a wall that was extremely difficult to get over, which is why what I said to this group is, look, we have to try to get around that wall, and that's why we published our 4 open letters that I believe played a significant role in along with other things, of starting to shift this conversation. But it took more than a year of this kind of aggressive work to even start to begin that type of change.
And some of that pushback came from our government, too. Is that correct?
Well, it was mixed. I mean, certainly from what we've heard, there were leaders of the United States government who, Dr. Fauci had said he was open to all possibilities, but then the next sentence was, the preponderance of science suggests a natural origin. I'm a fan of Dr. Fauci, but I don't like to scream at the television, but when I heard those words, I would say, well, no, that's not the case. That's not what the science, at least as I'm reading it, is saying.
To what you were just saying, Forbes mentioned you as one of the first, as an ex-high official, high-level staffer for Bill Clinton and then Senator Joe Biden to say that SARS coronavirus was likely a Wuhan lab escapee. Why did you think that?
Yeah. So in the early days of January of 2020, like everybody, I was trying to figure out what was happening, and I read the news reports, and it said it comes from the market, and SARS-2 sounded kind of like SARS-1, and that seemed credible, but I had just been in Wuhan, China, and so I think a lot of Americans had this vision of Wuhan as some little market town where a bunch of yokels are eating bats for dinner every night, but Wuhan is China's Chicago. It's an incredibly sophisticated, highly educated, wealthy city. I knew that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was based there. I knew a lot about that background. I also had an understanding both of the science and of China. And then on January 24th of 2020, there was a Lancet paper written by Chinese scientists saying that more than a third of the earliest cases of infection were of people who had no connection to the market. And so in my mind, that was a pretty strong piece of evidence that the market was a super spreader place, which certainly is what I still believe. And that was when I started digging. And then in later February of 2020, I had all of these ideas I was developing. I went to South Africa for the meeting of our World Health Organization Expert Advisory Committee on Human Genome Editing. And this is with some of the top scientists and others in the world. And then privately, I was telling people, like, here is my private view. Here's what I'm seeing in the evidence. And there was a part of me that was kind of hoping that they would say, oh, no, you're crazy, here's what you're missing, because this is an uncomfortable hypothesis for many reasons. That wasn't, certainly nobody was saying that, and that was why when I came back after those meetings, I became very, very public, and then I launched my website and wrote a number of editorials in March and early April.
I wanted to try to get another question here. Your take on this, was that before or after Proximal Origins came out? So and what was your take on that when you, I guess, read that? Yeah. And what impact do you think that had on the scientific community and the free discovery, so to speak, of
It's a great question, and just, I don't mean to be overly reference my own background, but I'm pro-science, pro-vaccine. I believe climate change is real. But when I saw that, I was monumentally, I'll say upset, angry, because without the available evidence, these absolute claims were being made. And I was really digging, and there just wasn't the evidence to make those assertions. So the right position in the beginning was what everybody is saying now. It could have been a natural origin, it could have been a lab origin, and we need to actively and aggressively investigate all relevant hypotheses. And it's very unfortunate that wasn't the case.
Yeah, and of course, the question we'll have to get to later is why was this, all the data deleted and everything?
Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so every time I put out a video, you can know about it. It'll come up in your feed. Hit that like button if you liked it. And be positive. Peace.